Now, joining me now is another great freedom fighter and great intellectual, the editor of Spiked, the must-read online magazine that I also urge you to subscribe to. You're going to be busy subscribing tonight. Brendan O'Neill, one of today's great writers, as I said, and a defender of free speech. Brendan, welcome to Inside the News here on Sky. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Rowan.
Great to see you. I want to kick off by what sounds kind of funny and innocuous, but is in fact, I think, pretty sinister, and that's this idea of the woke purge. This is no longer just all fragile lefties running around trying to cancel coon cheese or whatever it is, but you now have major big tech companies like Twitter, multi-billion-dollar organizations, Amazon and others literally silencing the elected US president. How serious, Brendan, is this threat to not only the president of the US, but the average man or woman in the street?
I think it's incredibly serious. And big tech, the big tech oligarchies have been censoring people for quite a long time. They've been censoring people who they think are too right-wing. They've been censoring feminists who call into question aspects of transgenderism. They've been engaging in censorship for a while. But when they suspended Donald Trump's various accounts on Facebook and Twitter and elsewhere, what they really demonstrated is that they are willing to interfere in the democratic process itself. This is the sitting president of the United States, the most powerful man in the free world, democratically elected, and these unaccountable billionaires in Silicon Valley switched him off. That is a grotesque interference in freedom of speech and democratic engagement. And this crosses a line. Anyone who underestimates how serious it is that these Silicon Valley influencers are now switching off politicians and preventing them from engaging online, people should not underestimate just how serious that is.
The bloke Jack Dorsey, who looks like a cross between, I don't know, John Lennon on a bad day and Rasputin, he came out last week and he said that this was just the beginning. He was caught on a Project Veritas film saying, oh, no, Donald Trump, that's just the beginning. We're now going to go after lots more people. So you've had this sort of purge. I've noticed on Twitter, maybe it's just me, but I seem to have lost hundreds of followers, and I've heard similar complaints from other people. They seem to be going through removing accounts, removing people. Where does this end up?
That's the question. I think it ends up with an actual purge of everyone who says something that the Silicon Valley woke elites disagree with. That's what's going to happen. And, this is going to have global repercussions. We are going to see authoritarian regimes in countries like Egypt and Saudi Arabia, Russia, China. They are going to say, look, it's perfectly legitimate for us to censor dangerous politicians or dangerous activists, because that's what people in the West do. That's what Western intellectuals and Western liberals think is absolutely fine when it comes to Donald Trump. So why shouldn't we do it as well? I think people underestimate the global impact it will have if this small number of unaccountable people in California have such an extraordinary level of control over freedom of speech. They are signaling to people around the world that it is acceptable to silence politicians, to silence activists, and a lot of authoritarians are going to grasp that power with relish.
Now, just to change the topic, but only slightly, Brendan, the UK seems to be turning into some grotesque, gigantic prison as you go from, what is it, Tier 4 to Tier 5 or God knows what lockdowns with no end in sight before April or May. As Fraser Myers writes in Spike this week, the most blindingly obvious observation anyone can make is that these lockdowns don't work. True or false, Brendan?
That's the thing. We are now in our third lockdown in the UK. We keep going in and out of them. We've been in and out of them for almost a year. And still the virus is spreading. And in fact, the second wave of the virus is pretty bad. More than 1,000 people are dying a day. The infection levels are very high. And that's partly down to the fact that we have a new variant which was first identified in the southeast of England, which is very transmissible. But obviously lockdowns don't work. We were told back in March last year that we were going to have a lockdown for about 3 weeks to flatten the curve, and then we would get back to normal. It was never about eradicating COVID-19. It was never about preventing anybody from getting ill. It was about preventing the NHS from being overwhelmed. But a year later, we're still in lockdown. We don't have any of our freedoms. The curve has not been flattened. The virus is still around, and the economy has been destroyed and civil liberty has been destroyed. So these constant lockdowns of society clearly do not defeat the virus, but they do defeat our freedoms. It's not working. someone in Boris Johnson's government has got to be brave enough to say that.
Absolutely. Brendan, you fought like a warrior for 4 years or longer to see Brexit happen. Now it's happened. I want to ask, has it lived up to your expectations? It's early days. Or has the UK leapt out of the EU frying pan into the totalitarian COVID fire?
Well, that's the thing. We fought to take back democratic control from the European Union. And now I think in 2021, we're going to have to fight to take back democratic control from our own government. The unfortunate fact is that this wonderful vote to leave the EU has given way to a new era in which we've all been locked down and democracy has essentially been suspended. But the fact is, Brexit was still a brilliant thing. It was a wonderful thing. It was the right thing to do. And in fact, COVID and the vaccination program demonstrates that. The United Kingdom has vaccinated more people than the rest of Europe put together, according to recent statistics. The EU is dragging its feet because it is a vast bureaucracy that doesn't know how to do anything, whereas the UK is storming ahead in terms of vaccinating people. So Brexit actually is saving people's lives, the opposite of what we were told would happen. We were told it would be a disaster and we wouldn't get medicine and we wouldn't get food and everyone would starve and all this kind of Project Fear nonsense. Brexit is a great idea, but the next stage is to ensure that our own government doesn't take away our liberties in the same way that the EU did.
Brendan O'Neill, it's always so great to chat to you. I love that observation, that insight that Brexit has actually allowed better medical services and delivery of the vaccine. Fantastic stuff. Brendan, always great to see you. Stay safe and we'll chat soon, and keep up the great work on Spiked Online. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Rowan.